Hello and welcome back to Satisfactory Outposts in the Desert. I want to apologize, it's been several days since my last video. Entering into tiers 5 and 6 of the game required a lot of time planning and preparing for the next several episodes. You know, tier 5 unlocks oil, and so the first thing I did was I had to travel far to the northwest and look at the oil nodes, like look at the quantity of them and the quality of the nodes, and then plan ahead and determine if those nodes would be able to supply all the oil that I would need for in game. And I think that they will. But to reach that decision, I had to, like look at all of the products in tiers 5, 6, and 7 that require like either plastic or rubber, and like kind of work backwards from there to see if I would have enough crude oil to produce enough. And then I also had to consider, the final iteration of the power grid for this network of outposts, and how we would, supply the outposts with the power that they need. I came up with a system of 120 fuel generators, all burning turbo fuel, that will set up. I think 2 episodes from now is what I'm planning for the fuel generators, and 120 fuel generators should produce 18 gigawatts of electricity. I think that'll be enough, with some to spare for all of these outposts. So first, let's just take a look at the milestones in tiers 5 and 6. I've already unlocked everything with just using the components I found around all the drop ships where you find the hard drives, and I made another loop collecting the rest of the hard drives that I could get. Now I think I have enough hard drive stored to unlock every alternate recipe. So the first milestone here, oil processing, gives you access to the oil extractor, the refinery, plastic and rubber and fuel, petroleum coke, circuit boards, and the ability to scan for oil. Industrial manufacturing, the manufacturer, this is like the upgrade to the assembler. It has 4 inputs. The truck, it's just a bigger tractor. Computer, modular engine, and the adaptive control unit. These last two are the next space elevator parts for unlocking tier 7. You'll see that this milestone required plastic. So when I was out at the oil nodes, the crude oil nodes, I set up a really small assembly just to make enough plastic and rubber to unlock these milestones, just so we could all do it. I wanted to have every milestone unlocked, so I could run all the hard drives through, and have access to every alternate recipe that I might need before we set up the long-term assemblies for mass production. Alternative fluid transport gives you a bigger fluid buffer, an empty canister. This allows you to package all of the fluids into these canisters for transport, like either on a belt or in terms of like the fuel to use them in vehicles. The gas mask, I made one of these. This was helpful in reaching a few of those hard drives. And then tier 6, expanded power infrastructure, gives you access to the fuel generator and Mark IV belts and lifts. A jetpack, we made one of those. And the monorail train technology, with the train, the freight cars, and then all types of the stations and rails. This will probably be a focus of the next episode, setting up our trains. For now, let's head northwest to maybe it's just directly west, to the oil nodes we're using. It's quite a distance away. I've already set up all the platforms. It's by far the biggest single layer platform to date, just because the nodes are a little bit spread out. There are many crude oil nodes in this location. I think I've put oil pumps on like 7 of them. there are even more if that would be needed, but they're a little bit farther away. This is just the same motor assembly we had before. It's temporary, but the platform is where we will make motors eventually. This is the platform that we'll use for our central storage hub. Then off to the north there, I set up a platform for deuterium and electronics, and even beyond that, there's a platform for making compacted coal, which we will look at next episode. Compacted coal is needed for turbo fuel. And then we'll hop in this hybrid tube to take us to the oil field. This little jaunt was, like that little bend was unnecessary. I could have just come straight off the hybrid tube there, but we can always fix that later. See the power lines on the ground there. I think they come up pretty soon. They changed, between the last episode and this one, they've updated a few of the graphics. The power poles are one of them. I'm not sure that I like the updated power pole graphics. They're definitely simplified. They look kind of like metal Q-tips. Alright, so I'm thinking right now that I'm going to put our fuel generators to power the power grid on this level of glass foundations, and then everything that's necessary for the refining of crude oil on this ground floor of foundations. Now these foundations are just barely above the water. See, this is the water. And I've covered over all of the water near the coast with these foundations, super close to sea level, close enough, in fact, that you can actually place the oil jacks, the oil pumps, on the foundations. See the water's underneath the foundation here, but it's so close to sea level that you can't see the water. You don't have to worry about your movement speed slowing down or falling off. But you can still place the oil extractors on top of the foundations. So there are both of these nodes are impure, which means that an extractor without power shards will draw at a rate of 60 crude oil per minute. You can see just how big this area that I've foundationed off is. It's pretty large. I think that I'll likely have to expand the glass foundations to accommodate all 120 fuel generators. This is the third extractor. I think it's on a normal node. Yeah, 120 cubic meters per minute. This extractor is also normal quality. It's a normal node. It's another 120. Now we're coming up on just the really temporary setup of refineries I made to just to unlock all of the tier 5 and 6 milestones. So this extractor and also this extractor here, they're on pure nodes, which means 240 cubic meters of oil per minute without shards. And this in the distance is a normal node, so 120. The nice thing about these extractors is that, so your pipes, just like in the coal generator, the pipes are limited to 300 cubic meters of water per minute, right? But when you add power shards to a normal node that defaults at 120, you can get it up to 300 cubic meters per minute. So normal nodes can completely equal pure nodes with power shards. And the same with the pure nodes. We'll take those up to 300 as well, just with one power shard. Even like using less than the full capacity of one power shard, we can reach 300 cubic meters per minute, the total capacity for a pipe to handle. So between these 7 nodes are the 2 pure nodes that'll be charted up to 300. We've got 3 normal nodes at 120 that we can also take up to 300. And then we've got 2 impure nodes that are 60 that we can take up to 150 and combine to another 300 if we need to. So that gives us a total amount of 1,800 cubic meters of crude oil per minute from these 7 nodes. That's pretty good. Now the plans that I've made only require a amount of 1,500 cubic meters at the moment, but because you need petroleum coke for aluminum, we may need the last set of impure nodes, grouped together at 300 to make enough petroleum coke to get us through our aluminum needs in Tier 7. But for now, we're only going to be using the normal and the pure nodes, all overclocked to output at 300 cubic meters per minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove all of this. I don't think I have the inventory space for it. Let's put down a box. So let's remove this temporary setup and get started on the permanent assembly array. Don't want to remove those storage containers. They're filled with plastic and rubber, and that'll be useful. But everything else, we'll clear away. And we need to find a good spot to set this assembly up, because there's a lot of moving parts to oil. The first step will be refineries for that turn crude oil into either plastic and this heavy residue. What's it called? Let's look at recipes here. Yeah, heavy oil residue. So we're going to use the standard recipe here that converts 3 crude oil into 2 plastic and 1 heavy oil residue. And then for rubber, here we go, we're using an alternate recipe that it's basically very similar: 3 crude oil into 2 plastic and 2 heavy oil residue. And then that heavy oil residue we will turn into fuel and also petroleum coke. Most of it will go into fuel using this recipe here, the 6 heavy oil residue into 4 fuel. And then we'll combine that fuel with compacted coal and into turbo fuel here. Heavy oil. I'm sorry, we're not actually turning the heavy oil into fuel. We're just going directly into turbo fuel from heavy oil. My bad. We combine the heavy oil with compacted coal directly into turbo fuel. Like, we don't need to take the extra step of turning it into fuel first. This is actually the better recipe. It's the same amount of, but it's slightly more compacted coal per turbo fuel, but you get to skip the step of first turning the heavy oil into fuel and then into turbo fuel. You just go directly into turbo fuel, which I think is good. Save a little bit of power. One nice thing about Update 3, or one of the hotfixes after Update 3, I guess, is that they reduced the power consumption of refineries from 50 megawatts to 30 megawatts each. That's pretty huge when you consider the number of refineries that you need. I think, oh man, these little lizard doggos keep getting stuck whenever I built this foundation. They were a pretty big pain. You gotta kind of like scare them off. So we'll start with the pure nodes, I guess. That's what really matter. We need to find a spot for our refineries. Come on, back up. A little bit more, go. Okay, great. So keeping in mind that we're limited to limited by our pipes to 300 cubic meters of liquid per minute in a pipe. One of these oil extractors at 300 can supply 10 refineries, making either plastic or rubber. And we can put down a refinery to just check that out. Making plastic and heavy fuel. Like, the way these icons work is the primary product is the larger icon, and then the secondary byproducts are the smaller icon in the circle. So this requires 30 per minute of crude oil. If we're limited by the pipes to 300 per minute, 300 divided by 30, that's 10. No problem. And that will make 20 plastic per minute times 10 is 200 plastic per minute, and also 100 heavy oil residue per minute, 10 times 10. And it will require 300 megawatts per minute to keep that running. So we need a location here for, I think I decided on 53 refineries. Let me just see if I can find my math really quickly here. $53, yeah. So it's 36 refineries making plastic. We only need 6 making rubber. And when I was first looking at these calculations, the the amount of rubber you need if you use the standard recipes is insane. It's like more than 2,000 rubber every minute would be consumed by your factory. But if you use the alternate recipes, you need very, very little rubber per minute. Like we'll be making, with our 6 refineries making rubber, that's 120 per minute. And that's actually more than we need using the alternate recipes, because a lot of the alternate recipes in Tier 7, I'm talking about heat sinks, like radio control units, turbo motors. The alternate recipes, they use either very little rubber or no rubber at all, which is great. Okay, so we need 36 refineries making plastic. And that means we're going to have to supply them with crude oil from, almost 4 extractors, 3.6 extractors. So to start, I guess we'll just make, this is the tricky part, because, in update 2, I would just set up an array of like 18 refineries on one side, 18 on the other. Belt speed was the only thing that I had to consider, but now I have to consider belt capacity and pipe capacity. So I think what we'll do is we'll still do the 2 rows of refineries, but let's set them up maybe back to back in groups of 5, so 5 on each side. Let's see how that looks. Refineries. Now we've got the fauna over there, the fire wasps and the spitters. They keep respawning, but I think that once we have a few powered buildings nearby, that should stop. So let's line this up. These are a little bit wider. Yeah, they are. A little bit wider than the foundations, actually. They're almost 2. Okay. Let's center them like we did the coal generators then. Actually, I was thinking about this, and it may be wise to put them off the ground a little bit. Let's just see how that looks. Alright. Put my concrete in a chest over here. I think we're going to start out using the, we'll see, but we may need to use our Mark IV belts too. Let's grab some of these for the Mark IV belts. Let's grab our concrete. Need some of these. Let's grab all of this. Alright. Let's take this and this as well. Okay. So let's see how many foundations this requires. Refinery. Okay. Just like one more. Yikes. Okay. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, that'll work. We can move it up a little bit. We'll see how this looks. We'll replace those with the other foundations if this seems like it's a workable idea. Okay. Refinery. The output in the middle. We want this right up against the edge. I need some vantage here. Okay. Yeah, this is better. Okay, we're going to center it on the line between the two foundations. So what we want to do, do we want to go back to back? Yeah, I think we just want to go side to side. As large as this platform is, I'm not sure that we have the space to despair, really. Let's try this. Okay, so there's 3. 2, 3, 5. Okay, so it's 4, and this will be 5. It's a game save hitch. They're getting pretty long. Okay. So now I raise them up because we've got pipes and so we'll have liquid and solids outputting or inputting. You know what? This may not be necessary because actually it just might be better to flip them around and have this in the middle. Let's think. So the purpose of this is to have the liquid and the solid that are outputting on a separate level, right? Because you can't have them on the same level. They just, there's too much overlap unless you want them running side by side, and that's not really ideal. And you could have like the pipes like going along this way, and then you have to use the conveyor lifts going up, or you can have the pipes coming down and avoid the need for conveyor lifts. And I think the fluid going down, obviously you don't want the pipes going up because then you need pumps. That's just more power and more resources. So the question is, do we output in the center or on the sides? Now I'm thinking we output in the center. That's a quick change. It's easier to split the crude oil once to either side than it is to combine the extract, or to split all of the outputs and combine them later. So refinery, outputting toward the middle, or what will be the middle. And I just need another lookout tower here. Okay. Just fell off. Okay. That looks good. Then we'll put down 5. It's 4 and 5. Okay, looks good. So this will be the output. The fluid that's output will be heavy oil residue. The solid will be plastic. So now let's mirror that over here. So I'll leave one space. I think that'll be enough. Alright. Let's get our big foundations. Going back 3. Okay. And now we mirror the refineries. They're just barely hanging over the edge there. I think that's good. Okay. There's our first 10. Now what we can do... Okay, well... we need some stack conveyor poles here in the center. Two is going to be the right height. Yeah. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. And right here. Let's see what level of belt we'll need here. We're making plastic. 20 per minute. Times 10 is 200 per minute. So we could use a Mark III belt here. Do I have Mark III belts on me? Yeah. I'll just need to put a merger in the center And that should allow us to do this. Yeah, the tricky part here will be the pipes, right? Logistics. Let's put this on our hotbar. Let's get up pipeline support. Guess we could actually use like this guy. Let's see how that looks. Maybe better to have it all the way on the ground. It's an encroaching clearance. Is it the... It's gotta be the merger, right? Yeah, merger. Okay, so let's put it on the ground. Now, here's the question. Do we need 2 pipeline junctions, or can we get by with just 1 centered? Let's see. If we can get by with 1, that would be ideal. But it may not work. Okay. So we're going to switch to a vertical. Oh, look at that. Okay, well, we don't like that clipping. No clipping, that's good. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to use 2 junctions. Let's make sure this is aligned. Yeah, that looks perfectly aligned. Okay. So junctions. And we may want to put the junctions down before this center pipe, but we'll see. Just try to eyeball it. We'll see if it's good enough. Alright. Alright. That's pretty good. So now we'll have our plastic being output to this belt and our heavy fluid residue to this pipe below it. I like that. Without using these half pipe, quarter pipe foundations, we would have had to use the conveyor lifts, and I think this is a much cleaner look. I wonder. That's weird. That's probably Yeah, look at that. It's so weird. If you put the splitters and the mergers on after placing the pipe, there's no clipping issue. But you can't place the pipe if there's already a merger placed. Like, this height is actually more ideal, but it's fine. Okay. So we will just need to set up the input here. This will be our first extractor. Need to put some power shards in. Take this up to 300 cubic meters per minute. And a few more foundations. Is there a better option for this? Yeah, that looks good. Look at that. Looks great. Okay. Now we need to, probably need to go all the way to the edge. We'll split our crude oil to go to each side. I do want to put my junctions down first here, make it a little easier. Logistics junction. So just looking, I can see that this input is aligned directly on the line between the foundations. Now let's just see how many spaces that is. That'll make it easier to go quickly here. Okay. So we'll have one space between, or two. 1, 2. Okay. One, two. Okay. Now we'll add our pipes. Okay, half done. We'll go to 2D mode for this. One, two. Now we just need to route the oil from this extractor over to this pipe. I'm hoping eventually they'll add the functionality to like automatically place mergers. That'd be very nice. Now I'm not sure if we're gonna need a pump up here or not. That's probably the best way to do this. Let's get our junction. Let's just put it right in the center. A lot of the fluid dynamics here are still kind of a mystery. But try this. It's actually an interesting thought. Play with that in a little bit. Okay, let's go back down to vertical. The hitching. Do we need a bump here? I think we may need a bump. Just to be efficient. I mean, they're filling. Let's set up our recipes. Guess they won't take crude until we power them up. That spitter's gotten himself stuck in the water out there. And the 10th one. Okay. Okay, good. Just double checking. I didn't select the wrong recipe in any of them. That could have like mixed fluid in your pipes and you have to flush them. It's not ideal. Let's see. Yeah, these pipes are full. Okay, we'll try it without. I'm wondering if like the water extractors and the oil extractors, like they function as a do they function as a pump initially? Like, can you neglect the first 20 meters of like vertical rise after the pump and before you need a pump, or after the extractor before you need a pump? Unsure. We'll see. Okay, let's get some power. Look at these power poles. I think I prefer the previous model. We're gonna start using Mark IIs. I guess they haven't changed the graphics within the build menu. So the Mark II is like just a little bit larger than the Mark I. It's harder to tell at a glance which is which. Guess we could just put two down side by side here. I like that idea. Make them Mark IIs. And now this power pole can power the southern side. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. Okay, let's try that again. This first power pole powers all of the southern side. The second powers the northern side. Alright, so we're making plastic. Just check our... It's full. I guess the test will be once we've connected the outputs for all of these. Will the last two refineries still be at max capacity? And if they're not, we'll need to add a pump to get the crude oil up that little jaunt there. This is our first set of 10 refineries making plastic. Like as I said before, we'll need 36 total. Not 36 sets of 10, but just 36 refineries total for plastic. And that'll be the largest array of like a single item for oil. See that they're already producing plastic and oil, and like the plastic is on the output belts, but once this internal like reservoir of heavy oil residue is capped out, they'll stop making the plastic. Like you have to do something with the byproduct. So this is where we'll end this episode. I'll continue setting up the remaining 26 oil refineries between episodes, and then next episode we'll hop in and we'll set up our the 6 refineries we need for rubber, only 6, and we'll also come up with a system for handling the heavy oil residue that we're producing here. So thanks for watching. This was really fun. I know it doesn't seem like not a lot was accomplished in this episode, but you know, when you're coming up with these systems, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then once you've got like your the system that you want to use, it's pretty easy to replicate it. So you know, keep smashing that like button. I promise the subsequent episodes are going to come much more quickly than this one did. This one took a lot of work between episodes to get everything prepared. But I'll be recording at least one more episode tonight, and then one or two tomorrow. The pace will pick up for sure. And I hope you guys will continue watching, and that you enjoy Outposts in the Desert. Until next time.